This is Good News Podcast, and our official first podcast that we're going to be putting out. This is something that we've been wanting to do for a while now, and we finally got the opportunity to start recording some of our conversations. This is pretty much just going to be a median for us learning information, like just through talking to different people. And at the moment, we have one webcam going. There's a little bit of technical difficulties. And within the next couple of sessions, we should be able to get 3 in this. And, there's going to be a little bit of evolution of this. This is the first go. And, we can start with introductions now. My name is Sabir Singh. I'm a student, a med student, taking some time off right now. I've had the ambition for a while to want to be able to sit down with people and have conversations in a kind of setting like this, like not really an interview setting, but like a round table setting. And this is something that a lot of people around me have been excited to kind of get involved with, and that's kind of how we've all come together today. So I'm pretty optimistic as to the direction that we might be able to do this. And that's me.
Okay. And I'm Graeme Beamiss. I'm a student at the University of the Fraser Valley, and I'm studying political science. And for that reason, I've been dedicated to understanding some of the bigger problems I believe are facing the global society, the global community at the moment. That being the control of information by what we call the mainstream media. I like the idea of the Good News Podcast because it provides us a platform to really direct the conversation in a more empowering, productive avenue. More productive direction, and to really talk about what isn't being discussed, some of the really big issues. And with that, I'll throw it over to you.
Hi, I'm Rick Cookson, father of 2. Not a man of lots of words, so I'll just keep it short and simple. I just want to bring up topics, discuss things. Other points of view interest me. Mm-hmm. So the more we bring up, the more we talk, the more guests that come on, that makes me happy. That almost, expands my horizon.
And there's definitely going to be questions from people as to where the name Good News came from. There was recently an interview I was watching with Denzel Washington, Richard Gere, Matt Damon, and a few other people. They were in a roundtable setting, and they were discussing, some of the dynamics of Hollywood and how it works, the culture, and they were talking about the States and the fact that most of the media information that we get, most of the stuff that we hear out there is usually not good news. It's, it's bad news that you hear. And that's the tendency where that media kind of goes towards. So the focus of this podcast isn't necessarily literally to bring good news all the time, but more so to provide the other spectrum of media, which is a little bit more, based off of social media and interaction on the newer scales of technology that have come presently to us. So it's something that I think we're able to benefit a lot from. Things like Twitter, things like Facebook, even Instagram and stuff, where you have creativity and art in a different form. Mm-hmm. So, we are lucky right now. And that's kind of where we got the name from, the concept for this podcast. And obviously, we're not denying the fact that there was a lot of inspiration from the Joe Rogan experience. And a lot of our setup was actually inspired by, things that we've heard and stuff. And we've all kind of, we all listened to different podcasts and, it kind of expanded. I personally expanded from the Joe Rogan experience into other podcasts and other interviews that, Sirius FM. And, that was kind of, for me, one of my root inspirations. But like Graeme has been interested in many other podcasts before, and kind of came into Joe Rogan after I mentioned it to him. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So like there is a lot of different aspects where we got inspiration for this, and we're just hoping to make this as much of a combined effort as we possibly can, something that's actually efficient, and just start talking. That's the main concern.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important to specify though that we're not scholars, we're not professionals in most of the fields we're going to be discussing. It's simply to open the platform and to really to try and talk about things that will be beneficial to us. So we're human beings. We're prone to error. At the same time, we welcome any sort of input you have. The idea, like we mentioned earlier, is just to really get us going on a positive note. You know, I think it's safe to say that we're really not going to hear what we need to hear from the mainstream media, from television or you know, a lot of radio, and it's really up to us as individuals to try to get the ball rolling and to spread the information that's not talked about. Okay.
So basically, I wanted to talk personally about something that is, you know, something that I've been really interested in for a long time, into investigating it, and we currently are in the first week of June, which is when a lot of people in the Sikh community commemorate the attacks of 1984 on the Sikhs in Punjab. So you know, during this time there was also a candlelight vigil at Vancouver Art Gallery, where they also try to inform a lot of the public about, you know, the things that happen behind the curtains, the things that you don't hear about. They are being, you know, a little bit more reported on than they were in the past. Like, you'll see them in textbooks and in classes and whatnot, but the majority of the knowledge about the things that happen on that date still are not known by, you know, the majority of the people. So I do ask that if anybody out there gets a chance, please investigate into 1984, and so that those events don't actually just go unheard and don't go underappreciated for the fact that, you know, they should be brought up. Things like this in the past where, you know, governments try to cover up major things like this, that's kind of where we have to stand up and actually try to, like, educate people about these things. So that being said, we're also going to transition now into talking about India as a whole. I've had the honor to actually just have been I've just come back from India from schooling, and it was definitely an amazing experience there to have, like, a different, totally different setting, and to be thrown into, like, a very different environment completely. But one of the problems in India that I noticed, actually, I came here on December 21st, so the day the world ended, I guess. Surprisingly, I landed here without... I actually took off from India at like 11:30 or something, and we got in the air at midnight, and, like, we just looked around. Nobody was really stressing out or anything. It was interesting. But I got here, and about a week or so before we actually took off from India, there was an incident in which a female, she was... her and her I think her male friend were on a bus, and this incident is actually, if you look up Wikipedia, rape in India, it comes as one... Yeah, Beamiss, if you could just show that, Graeme. And it says here that on... the gang rape of a 23-year-old student on a public bus on December 16th, 2012 sparked large protests across the capital, Delhi. She was with a male friend who was severely beaten with an iron rod during the incident. The same iron rod was used to penetrate her so severely that the victim's intestines had to be surgically removed before her death 13 days after the attack, which I believe happened in Singapore. They had to take her to a different hospital. That was a gruesome incident. You can't even imagine, like, you know, obviously they didn't release pictures or anything because this is not something that anybody should ever see. But I just, you know, I couldn't believe that this was happening on such a grand scale. Like, rapes have been something of a problem in India for a long time now. And there's also a statistic right here that according to the National Crime Records Bureau, 24,206 rape cases were registered in India in 2011, although experts agree that the number of unreported cases is much higher. So this is something that has been around for ages. You know, the statistics are really staggering. You know, like, they almost sound like unrealistic. But 24,000. You know, India having the population that it does, that obviously does account for a little bit of the difference with other countries. With India having over a billion almost population. So, I mean, that was something that, you know, it's when we go to India as students from America or the States or all over the world, we sometimes forget where we actually are. You know, we get there, we get comfortable, we see people from around the world all around us, if you're in Goa and these places. But if you go to India, you sometimes forget that, you know, you're in a place where anything can happen, right? And Like that's you don't expect these kind of things to happen, but I don't know, it's strange that nobody actually, like, there's always people on the bus along with the people that, you know, were raped, and you would think that these kind of things would be stopped, but it seems like this occurrence is not like really something that's fading off, you know. It's in India actually, some of the press and some of the leaders, when they were asked about this, you know, why is this such a reoccurring problem, their answer, they were saying, like, you know, right now the media has recently picked it up because there's one tragic incident, you know, the one that we were just talking about, the notable incident, and they were like, you know, generally speaking, these kind of things always happen, however they're not reported on, so we're just waiting until the media frenzy kind of dies down. That was their answer to it, you know. Instead of actually responding with somewhat of a notion of actually trying to move forward and like get some kind of solution to this problem, they just kind of said that we're just going to wait it out so until the storm dies down a little bit.
Now, what do you think accounts for that? You know, what do you think accounts for their reluctance to really take a stand against it, and what do you think stood in the way of the people really trying to help this woman?
I mean, it was interesting that, generally speaking, you know, in India you do have problems with inequality, right? That's something that people see, that women are always treated differently, and there's different cultures in India that there's isolated cultures that, you know, don't have so much of a problem with inequality. However, like, that is something on a grand scale. You know, you have dowry that still exists in a lot of cultures. You have just the general domestic violence that occurs. There was actually there was an individual, he was actually a really well-known Indian film actor, and he used his power that he had. Like, you know, you hear a lot about these people in Hollywood that use their power of, like, you know, the ability to actually, you know, get funds or get attention to a given topic. So they use that as like a platform for, you know, activism. You know, you have George Clooney, you have, I think Johnny Depp does a lot of stuff, you have Matt Damon, Bono, these guys. But, you know, the majority of Hollywood, they have so many chances to do things for people, to do better things for people, not just having, like, you know, singing benefits and stuff, but actually on a grand scale. But they, you know, they don't. But this one film actor, I believe his name is Amir Khan, he made an Indian movie called 3 Idiots. Pretty nice movie, really good storyline and stuff, and I think it was directed by him. But he also made the Hangover Indian version of, I can't remember the title of the movie. So he's a pretty well-known director / actor, and that's him. He's a pretty well-known director and actor. And this guy, like, that's not him. Yeah, these are other people. But the first one was him. Yeah, that's him. So he, what he did was, with his power and his ability to actually, like, you know, get people to listen to him, he started a show. I can't remember the exact title of it, but basically what they do is major problems, social problems in India, they address them, and they go in like sting operations and stuff. Like they showed, you know, female infanticide is a major problem, right? That like women, babies that are females are often, like, you know, either aborted or even just killed. And they show this one doctor, and one of the people that Amir Khan sent in as part of a sting operation, they had like a camera attached to them, and they went in, this lady, and she's like, I'm pregnant with a daughter and I don't want to have this baby, so what should I do? And she's like, just wait until it's born, dig a hole, not somewhere that you'd plant food, and just, you know, throw it in the hole, right? And that was like really something that, you know, I couldn't believe that was the state of affairs even in this, like, you know, the 21st century. You know, that's still something that people resort to. And that was, you know, shocking. And he had another bit about just the fact that domestic violence is so strange, that people generally think that, you know, village people would be the more like uneducated and prone to violence. But the worst problems, even though they are isolated usually, but the worst problems happened in like the city areas. This one woman, she was lying in her bedroom, and I think she'd had an argument with her husband or something. Her husband and her father-in-law walked in and started eating her face. Like literally eating flesh off of her face. So they, like, on one of the episodes, they show this woman, they interviewed her, and she talked about her experience. Like, it was shocking stuff, obviously. This is something that, you know, you see her in the interview, she's missing like chunks of flesh from her face, right? So like it's it's disgusting behavior. And this one individual, Amir Khan, he went and started the show, and it actually made a big difference. Like, they had laws changed. They had doctors have their licenses revoked. They had people completely change their way of business because this guy had like showed how they're either scamming people or mistreating people. So it was really cool to see that. I'm not a big fan of Indian cinema just because I guess I never really got into it as a kid, but it was good to see that somebody in that massive industry, like Bollywood, puts out a ridiculous number of movies every year, right? And there's a couple of like the States and Canada pretty much has Hollywood. In there they have like Bollywood, they have like Tollywood, like all these different names. Like I think it's Tamil Hollywood, that one. But like they put out so much movies. One of the biggest industries in the country is making movies, the film industry. So and out of that, this guy made such a big difference. So it kind of showed that he basically just went in and he said, I have an idea for a TV program, and if you guys want to support me, you can. And I know it'll make money, so I'm not going to tell you what it's about. I'm not going to tell you what the premise is. You guys just have to set up a set for me, and I'll start doing it. And he went in, most of the producers and directors didn't know what he's going to be doing with the direction. And, he decided to pretty much use it for, like, actually positive activism. So it was really a positive outcome from that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, India has been having a lot of problems across the table. There's been... obviously, you guys have heard about the Monsanto problem, right?
Yeah.
And,
yeah, I know. They've taken over 95% of the cottonseed industry in India.
wow.
And when you control seeds, you're controlling life, and you're also controlling the lives of the farmers. There's the seeds basically, they don't yield any new seedlings after they've grown up and become our food, right?
Mhm.
So they can't replant the seeds, which means they're still
Mhm.
buying more seeds off of Monsanto in the end.
These are the suicide genes.
Yeah, the suicide genes.
Mm-hmm.
But and they can't make livings. So all these farmers, they get into debt and end up getting sued, and then they end up committing suicide
there have been
themselves.
hundreds, thousands of people committing suicides over something like this, and I think that amounts to nothing short of chemical warfare.
Yeah.
There's simply no reason to eliminate, and this is one of the reasons, or one of the outgrowths of this, but by introducing these seeds that are now immune to any other form of pesticide or herbicide, like Roundup, you're eliminating so much diversity of the crop now that you are solely dependent on, say, corn or wheat of one variation.
Yep.
If there's a blight that, say, overcomes Roundup, which I have confidence in there being, you're done. Whereas in a place in Rwanda, in one of the oldest farming communities in the world, they have such a vast variety that if one goes down, they have another form of tomatoes or carrots or what have you to replace it. And it's eliminating that. I mean, we could go on and on about this.
Oh yeah, well, we both marched on the 25th of March,
Or 26th, yeah.
26th,
Yeah, that of May 26th.
May.
That was actually a really cool thing that people from all over the world decided, almost like an Occupy movement, right?
Yeah.
But like they decided that this specific topic of Monsanto had to be addressed, and there was one in Abbotsford here and one in Vancouver. So I believe. The Abbotsford one was a great turnout. I showed up a little late actually, and I was kind of discouraged when I first showed up, but I decided not to give up once I got there, and I ended up bumping into about 400 people.
Yeah.
So it was really good. It was everyone was extremely excited.
Yeah, and I remember when I was heading into the one on Vancouver, and I texted this guy because it was starting to rain, and I said, geez, I hope it doesn't rain. And this guy, with the determination of a bloody warrior, goes, let it rain. You remember you said that?
Yeah.
We'll march just the same. But yeah, same with Vancouver, like wonderful turnout, people from all walks of life out there, talking about an issue that really pertains to us all. And I think the argument in that respect is really, those who know about what Monsanto's doing and really don't like it, and those who are completely unaware. And I think it's I think it's wonderful to see so many people banding together over an issue like this. Really inspiring.
It seems like the way that Monsanto has been doing business so far, you can almost like make a movie about it. It's so almost fictional the way that they've been going about this. Evil, like the president, of Monsanto is now the deputy minister of the Food and Drug Association of the United States. Administration, right?
FDA for short.
For the FDA, yeah. So like that being said, that basically shows you that they can have anything passed. They can, essentially get around any laws that prevent certain foods from being passed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very strange protocol now. You can't really bank on the fact that politicians are always going to have the best, your best interest in mind, right?
Yeah.
And that's like Monsanto has been, they've been doing this for a long time. And one of my friends, Adam McDougall, he was recently just saying in one of his comments, he was saying that I want to see what is in the fridges of those Monsanto, high up individuals, like
CEOs,
the presidents, the CEOs,
the executives.
Yeah, the CFOs, all those, right? What's in their fridges, do they have any, I can't see any of them actually doing that, right?
Well, actually the cafeterias for the employees of Monsanto don't eat their own food.
Yeah, what does that say?
Their cafeteria serves organically grown food.
Yeah.
So that's being a hypocrite there.
It's good.
You're trying to advertise this genetically modified organism that you're trying to that's food supposedly.
Yeah.
To everyone else, but to yourself, it's only organic.
Yeah.
And I've just pulled up something here. If you'd like to know just how deep the connections go between governments and Monsanto, we can see here that they've gone way back with the Bush administration. It was George Bush Sr. who actually appointed Clarence Thomas, a Monsanto attorney, to the Supreme Court, and he's playing a key role in providing the connection there. At the same time, John Ashcroft. I'm sure Donald Rumsfeld's in there somewhere. John Ashcroft is the current Attorney General. Actually, I don't think that's right. Was the top recipient of the Monsanto contributions when he recently tried to get reelected in the U.S. Senate. And that's startling. To have these guys, strange bedfellows, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like innovation itself was very different before. Like if you look at individuals, you can kind of see at a certain point in the century the intentions of people changed. It went from individuals that were entrepreneurs or like inventors. They had the intention of bettering society, right? Now it's more so that they have the intent of how can I better myself? How can I get more money out of this? Like a prime example, I think the most perfect turning point, to see when that turning point essentially happened was essentially when Nikola Tesla, he came from Europe, and he was brought in to be the apprentice of Edison at the time. And if you just look at the way that individual's life went, you can see that the world, denies progression in some way or another. This individual, when he was on his deathbed, he famously had this speech, or it was actually an entry in his journal. He was in a hotel alone, and he writes that, I am in a hotel alone, and I'm writing in my journal about how he said, literally, I feel like the world didn't use me. And he has this one famous line. He said, I could have lit up the world, but they wouldn't allow me to, right? Because essentially he had produced this type of energy that this type of method in which you can pull unlimited amounts of energy. This is actually a Nikola Tesla right here.
Yeah.
And
great man.
So you can pull unlimited amounts of energy from the atmosphere, right? So he was essentially saying that, when you have lightning strike, we can never essentially get all of that electricity and just put it into one battery because it's too much. So he's saying that is how much, power can be created by just friction, these clouds. Mm-hmm. So he said that in that atmosphere, there's an unlimited amount of energy that's constantly reproducing, right? So he went to JP Morgan with this. And the Morgan Chase banks, a lot of people may know the Morgan family, and J.P. Morgan at the time, he was confident that Tesla had the ability to do something, because he had actually won AC current over DC, which was a big deal, because Edison, he essentially at one point tried to sabotage.
Well, it's because he was behind DC. He had developed direct current, and when his apprentice Nikola Tesla came out with alternating current, a far superior system, naturally he was a little ticked off, and so he really tried to shut his program down. He'd held public displays, he'd electrocute animals with AC.
And it didn't even work. Like, the thing with DC was that you had to have transformers at very small distances just to keep the power going. It wasn't efficient for transferring electricity over long distances. Yeah. So when J.P. Morgan went to him, he gave him money, and Tesla finished all of this, all of his process of making this system work. He had buildings that were called Tesla Towers that their sole purpose was to essentially be power plants and to feed into the system. And he then essentially Morgan came back to him and he said, "Okay, you're done. You can do this now. You're successful. So let's monetize this now." And that's where Tesla said, "That's not my intention here. Like, I only want to make the world better. So I don't want people to have to pay for electricity. That's why this technology is so necessary." So, that's when Morgan stopped paying him. That's when Morgan pulled all of his funds. That's when some of the governments started kind of taking away some of his patents on certain things. Like, Tesla actually discovered radio waves, right? Yeah. However, that credit was given to somebody else. Tesla actually designed the light bulb, but that model was refined by Edison, right? So he was not given a lot of credit for a lot of the things that, Tesla coils are in every circuit, every electric circuit in the world.
Every piece of electronics today contains at least one of his patents.
Yeah.
This guy was around, nearly 100 years ago now. What does that say? Yeah. But I think it's important to talk about. He was working on transmitting electricity wirelessly.
Well, not working on. He actually did it successfully.
He did.
Right?
He did.
Yeah.
He supplied power to the World's Fair
in France.
The
Expo.
Wardenclyffe Tower
yeah,
project.
That's it.
Yeah. So that was amazing, right? And generally speaking, think about that. So this is in, this is back.
Pull it up.
What date was that in? When that actually if you could look that up. I don't want to misquote it here. However, but that was way back, and they had the ability. We think that it's amazing that Wi-Fi is existing to this day, right? That we have Wi-Fi, but he could essentially forget data. He could transmit electricity without any damage to genetic material.
Exactly.
Right. So there wasn't any mutations that he observed or anything. He was heavily testing this to make sure that, because it sounds pretty ridiculous that you're sending electricity through the air, right? So he famously had this one picture. Can you bring that picture up? It's Tesla with a light bulb, and he's sitting on a rubber pad, and he's holding a light bulb in his hands, and he's lighting it up. And he's saying that this light bulb is being lit, wirelessly, right? So that picture, just look up Tesla light bulb. And this picture, it's really iconic in this.
Oh, yes.
There it is. Yeah, the first two, one of those. Yeah, this one's got a little bit of blue to it. But this picture basically is him. I think this was in France when this was taken, but it's him holding a light bulb, and he's sitting. You can't see, but he's sitting on a rubber pad on a chair. So it's pretty. This is definitely an iconic picture. This is what everybody associates to Tesla, kind of. So, and this was actually interesting. Back when was this made? So, the Centennial light, which is the longest lasting light bulb, has lasted for 110 years, and they say that it's only been turned off a handful of times. At least 110 years. They say that the fire department in the area in Livermore, California, they say that it's 110 years at the minimum, and Guinness Book of World Records and Ripley's have confirmed this. So that something that we are always doing, we're always replacing light bulbs. That's something that we shouldn't even have to do. And to say that, okay, it's because they've never been turned off, because turning off light bulbs is what kind of screws them up. But the thing is that by now we should have enough technology that we're not having to replace light bulbs, right? That there shouldn't be dumps full of old light bulbs. That's something that really doesn't make sense to me. If we had that technology back then, there's also a famous book, Who Killed the Water-Powered Car, which is a really famous book, kind of shows you that that was another thing that was a process that was sabotaged. It wasn't allowed to make it to the public eye, right? And the water-powered car.
Yeah, and that's just one. There was also Who Killed the Electric Car, you know, you name it.
Yeah.
But this information does exist. You know, you can download the manual on how to make yourself a permanent magnetic generator. And, you know, these things aren't just built by crackpots. These are built by, you know, physicists, people that teach in universities. You know, I've seen a few of these things tested, and while they're never allowed to be said to be permanent, to have broken the laws of thermodynamics, you know, they simply say that they're producing more energy than they're taking in. You know, and if that's not a perpetual motion machine, I don't know what is.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I don't know. Well, the guy's a genius. That's all I got to say, right?
Yeah.
He's he can do integral calculus in his head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, he was describing that he could build things in his head and put them together and know exactly how they work, and then write them down on paper, creating it.
Yeah, in fact, you know, he would say that he would be out walking in a park, say, and you know, he would just be struck by a blinding vision in his head, and it would be so crystal clear, the object that he was trying to create. And this went for his you know, his major discoveries, to understand magnetics, to understand the way photons work, to understand every aspect of electronics that goes into making the machines that he did. You know, these came to him in visions.
And it's interesting that, like, nowadays in our society, we don't really have that much leisure time anymore. You know, we don't have time to sit down and just think about things. It's actually a famous Beatles line that always comes in my head, that a man will break his back for his day of leisure, right? That, you know, you'll work your butt off so that you have one day to kind of sit. And I always thought that the meaning of that line was, you know, day of leisure, just to have, like, fun, chill out, whatever. But I think that it was something more than that, especially for the Beatles, like, individuals that were really introspective and talked about some deep things. You know, essentially, we now don't have the time to sit down and just converse with each other like this. This essentially is what we're trying to do now, is that we're trying to make this kind of, you know, this kind of motion back and forth begin. And nowadays it's unfortunate, but a lot of these inventors and people that had really good insight into our societies, they used to use like menial tasks to put their minds into a state where they can think about, like, higher thinking, or they can have higher thinking, elevated thought, right? This is a prime example of this. Einstein, he used to work in a patent office, and during his time at the patent office, he said that he got some of the best work done on the theory of relativity, because he was trying to figure this out, he's trying to put it together and everything. And just by doing a task over and over again, that's just, you know, a repetitive task, it's almost automatic, and your mind goes into this state of almost hypnosis. Like that kind of hypnosis that people call highway hypnosis, when you're on the highway and you get from, you know, your work to your house and you don't remember hitting any of the lights, you don't remember taking this turn or that turn. That's when you're in that state of mind, that your body goes into automatic mode, and you can actually have some amazing thoughts. I don't know if you guys, like, I've had crazy thoughts while I was driving, and then I've been like, oh wait, how did I get home? You know, like by the time that I'm in my driveway, I'm wondering how.
I pulled one of those the other day, and it was the same thing working in a restaurant. You know, you get everything down to muscle memory, and you freeze your mind up to examine some of the really important things in your life. You know, and I absolutely encourage that. Yeah, you know, as we were talking about, we have more technology to free up time than we've ever had before. We've had more information at our fingertips than we've ever had before, and yet we have no time to use it. All of our time is spent either working or trying to recuperate from that working session. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and what I've come up with is basically this. We saw things start to shift around the time that public relations came on the scene. And, you know, public relations is the name given to what was originally propaganda. Edward Bernays, who is the nephew of Sigmund Freud, came into the U.S. and, you know, through his studies of analytics, you know, psychoanalytics, he basically began to apply what you study in psychology to marketing. And so this is around the time that products are being renegotiated to no longer be sturdy, you know, durable, long-lasting items. This is no longer what they're trying to sell, because, if you're selling something and it's durable, your customers aren't coming back. You're not getting resale.
No.
And so naturally, we're going to jump over to making things, like we see today. We see toothpaste. We see every single product we buy is, A, it's non-renewable. B, it's made to be fragile. Look at electronics. An iPod that, could potentially last, 10, 15, 50 years, even with the parts it has. It's almost designed to break, suicide chains.
Yeah.
And so, Edward Bernays came on the scene, and basically he was charged with making people want something that really expressed a part of their identity, as opposed to say, this is useful for me. This is a means to an ends that I have now. Instead we have products that express our personality. Our cars and clothes, these things that we're made to buy. This is really, the level of distraction, that's unprecedented. And I think that's one of the things we really need to tackle.
Yeah, people are being used and things are being loved. It's
said it, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. You walk down the street nowadays and you see 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds with iPhones.
Yeah.
What's the point of that?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get a phone until I was about 15 years old, and I had the money to afford it.
Mm-hmm.
They're all getting.
I don't think phones necessarily are the problem, because we do come up with technology is changing, so it's kind of like the younger people are getting more access to better technology. Yeah. But where you see the problem kind of start to arise is, growing up as kids, what did we used to do for fun? We'd go outside and we would just spend. I remember I used to tell my parents, I'm like, we're just gonna go play. That was the word, We're just gonna go play. We didn't say we're gonna do something specific. We're gonna go play, right? That in itself, we were able to make fun. We were able to go bike riding for like 2 days or something straight, just whatever we wanted to do. But nowadays, you see that kids are spending a lot more time indoors, right, for fun, and that's something that has started changing, especially in the Western, especially here in Canada and the States, more predominant in the States. That's where you'll see so much more obesity in the States, right? And that in itself is something to me that is a really big shocker, that you can have a physical line that we make, a man-made line completely.
A metaphysical line,
Yeah, and sorry, not a metaphysical line, non-physical line, if anything. But you can have this man-made line, and you totally have a different perspective on the other side of it. That shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be you have people who think very differently, very it's unfortunate to say, but during my social studies classes in high school, I used to go across the border, ask people questions there and ask people questions here in Canada, and kind of compare. And through that, I saw that there was a lot more ignorance about world topics, world history, world religions, right when you cross into the States. So within almost less than 15 kilometers from here, you have a totally different mindset. And that's a remix, sorry.
Oh no, this is what we want.
Yeah.
I think this is extremely pertinent to what we're discussing right now, and this clip comes from Charlie Chaplin back in the 40s. Yeah, and this is something I think they should show in schools.
So the audio is actually not going to be picked up by this. Sorry. Oh. So this is definitely something to show. I would suggest this video. It's called it's from the movie The Great Dictator, and it's if anybody hasn't heard of Charlie Chaplin, I'd be surprised. He's for those of you who haven't, he's a silent film actor. You'll often see that he has that what people call the Hitler mustache, and people dress up as him for Halloween a lot. So there's a bit of confusion. People think that they're dressing up as Hitler and stuff. Yeah. But Charlie Chaplin was predominantly a silent film actor, and that's why people don't imagine that he would have a crazy insight. He would have crazy speech. This speech that he gave in this movie, to this day, I believe it's completely relevant. Doesn't matter how much time has passed. I believe Charlie Chaplin was during the 1920s, late 20s, 30s. 30s, yeah. Right? So back then, what he said, and he was saying that we're becoming machine people. We need to become more empathetic of each other. We need to stop, with war and divide. His message in this, I cannot sum up or I cannot paraphrase in any way, but his message in this is so moving, essentially. And it's crazy that any given person can give a speech that can have such a massive, widespread impact, right? Like, Martin Luther King was an individual that a lot of people, they remember the speech, the I Have a Dream speech. But this was a speech that I think kind of went under the radar for a lot of people. So
yeah, I think it's it's evidence though. What you're saying. You wouldn't expect this single person to make such an impact, but it's what we're challenging right here. We see Shane Smith of Vice News doing the same thing.
And I honestly, I admire that guy like no other person, right?
It's
really at the forefront of rogue media, right?
Yeah.
So,
but and
he's Canadian. So that's
even better.
Yeah, but what he's showing and what we're showing right now is that anybody at all can make a difference. And you've heard this before. We all discuss the same thing when we reach this point where we have the platform. And this was actually a very inexpensive platform that we've put up here, but it's imperative that people realize their own power, that they step into it and really accept responsibility, and make the effort to reach out, because that's all it takes really. It's not a huge undertaking. It's nothing like taking down the corporations from inside.
No.
It's nothing more than sitting here and discussing with my neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been proven with Monsanto. Look at this. We're the march, everything. It's
in Hungary, they're burning crops.
Yep.
Italy, China,
Russia.
Japan.
Yep.
And there's definitely a change of tide. Like you're seeing that Bhutan, right? They just changed their food to completely organic. Their whole food industry is now organic. And I believe that you were saying that Bhutan's unofficial nickname is the last stronghold of Buddhism, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah, lots of love to Bhutan.
We got the Buddha head right here, right?
Oh, yeah,
just watching over
there he
right?
is.
But lots of love to that. But it was something really amazing that there is a change in the tide. There's people are starting to be more aware of global things. They're saying this is going to affect our children. We're more concerned about it. That's something that you were telling me about, right?
Well, as a father, you want to give your kids the best. You want to give your family the best. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be giving them something that in 30 years from now they're going to be having a heart attack because they ate.
Yeah.
And with sports and everything, growing up, they're going to need the nourishment. They're going to need all that extra little bit.
Yeah.
Whatever it does to them.
Yeah.
At least as long as it's healthy.
Yeah.
I heard it said, and I love this little bit of an analogy. It's kind of like Sisyphus. The guy, the Greek legend, the guy pushing the rock up the hill for eternity.
Yeah.
And I think we can apply that to society, and we look at the way we do things. Now imagine that we're all divided, like we've been in the past, and self-serving. We're out for ourselves, kind of thing. And our task globally is to push this boulder up the hill. Now, as a self-serving society, I don't think we can do it. It's really, we have to band together. We really have to learn to cooperate or perish together, as Willy Brandt said. And really, you can break that down. Why wouldn't you? We attribute so many good feelings to this sort of behavior. It's you might call it selfish. You might say there's no such thing as a free lunch. You can't give selflessly, but really examine. I think it's important to examine in your own life what really makes you happy. And it's been said before. It's not things, it's people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I heard somebody say that kind of what the intent behind the podcast is. Generally speaking, this is something that somebody had said, that low-minded people, they talk about things. Middle-minded people talk about people, and high-minded people talk about ideas, right? So that's kind of the purpose here, that the ideas, we ourselves are not saying that we are high-minded, but we are aspiring to it, right? It's kind of how doctors, they say if you're going to be a doctor, you got to dress like a doctor, right? Well, we want to be high, elevated thinkers, and as a result, we try to make our thoughts go in that direction. That's kind of the purpose of the podcast, right? So we're aspiring to have knowledge, not necessarily saying that we have any at all.
No, yeah. like we said earlier, this is we're human, we're prone to mistakes. We love feedback. We want to hear from you if you have any information to add productively. I know there's obviously going to be some folks out there that purely like to point out the flaws with no way of sort of counteracting them, but we're open to any positive feedback, any criticism that we can work with. We're happy to receive.
You can reach us on Twitter at GN Podcasters. We've just kind of begun that Twitter, so it's a little bit in the process of getting up and running. And we are also on YouTube. That's where we'll be mostly posting these videos. So that's GM Podcasters also. So you can find us on YouTube at the same account name.
You know, we were discussing just now, just gave me an idea for anybody who's ever read or listened to Your Wish Is Your Command by Kevin Trudeau.
Yeah,
basically his story is he's he got picked up as a young guy by one of those secret societies and was given the tools to basically make his life what he wanted from it. And essentially he basically, in this Your Wish Is Your Command, details everything that the elites do. That the CEOs, the people installed in government, these guys that have had the sort of grooming that allows them to take on these positions have had. And it really comes down to Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men at the turn of the century, said it beautifully, that we become what we think about most of the time. And that kind of goes back to what we're trying to do here. We're trying to push the direction of public thought in a productive and empowering direction. Something we can all build from, because I really do believe we have what it takes to clean up the mistakes,
It's interesting, like if you look at the podcast setting that a lot of people use, back in the day, you had people like Howard Stern that did a lot of, radio and interviews and stuff, essentially the same thing, but you didn't have videos being put out. You didn't have video podcasts being put out or video interviews that otherwise would have just been on the radio. Nowadays though, and originally if you told people back in the day that this kind of thing would be running, essentially that people would watch, around a table setting like this and feel like they're engaged, they wouldn't have believed it. But I don't know how it is personally, from my own experience too, it almost like this setting allows you to feel like you're the fourth person in that circle, right? Like you're sitting in the room and a lot of people feel like there aren't like-minded people out there. They feel like, I have a knowledge bank that most people don't have, and that most people don't understand the same perspective that I do. And they'll be surprised. A lot of the times they're pleasantly surprised that things like this podcast are existing out there, that people want to talk about similar topics. They want to talk about how to open our eyes on world issues or on things that are affecting us on a day-to-day basis, like what we eat, the water that we drink being, constantly pumped with fluoride, these kind of major issues that people don't talk about. So it is something that we are really looking forward to, to moving forward with. And I don't know, a recent issue that's been coming up a lot as a result of social media was the situation in Turkey right now. And I don't know if Graeme, can you pull that picture, the Turkey one?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, and it's this is absolutely an amazing picture. It's actually really daunting, and it's kind of dark in the fact that it shows what the current conditions are and some of the protests that are going on, the British Revolution, or sorry, not the British Revolution, in Istanbul, and this is actually a picture of one of the protests, and you can see at the bottom of the picture here is the SWAT or the responders, and then you have mass protesters just absolutely piling into the streets, and there's really is the state right now in Turkey is very it's on edge as a result of yet again religious tensions, right? Yeah. And slowly, because of Twitter and because of these alternate media sources, we're actually being more and more educated on this. But
yeah, that's actually the sole provider of a lot of what we know that's going on in there,
Turkey,
because the government has put so much pressure on the media outlets there that nothing's getting through in that respect. So really, Twitter's behind all of this.
Yeah. And a lot of these problem countries, North Korea, and these countries that a lot of people report on, that's actually where you'll have the worst media blackouts, right? Yeah. So it's definitely a very tense situation in Turkey right now, and they're even trying to institute prohibition against alcohol again, which is if you can imagine in this modern world, even though alcohol is one of almost the most widely spread abused drugs out there, right? To try to instantly change everybody's perspective on it or change, take that out of their lives is, I think, a little bit impractical. You're not going to see that kind of...
It's a lot impractical.
It's, it's really impractical, and it's completely illogical to try to institute this kind of stuff in this modern society that we are in.
Yeah.
Because prohibition in itself is a business tactic, right? You'll see that in the oldest... prohibitions with reference to any drug out there, there's always a reason for a prohibition. There's a business behind it.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's almost a recipe for a mafia to spring up. We saw that down in the U.S. when they tried to prohibit alcohol.
Yeah.
Al Capone's business boomed.
Boardwalk Empire, right?
That's
essentially what it's based on.
But and that going back to the whole idea about Twitter being responsible for a lot of what we're seeing. People standing up in solidarity with Istanbul right now. It's losing my train of thought.
No, yeah. Well, I mean, Twitter it does have a power that people didn't necessarily see before, right? That essentially everybody's a reporter, and you can't censor that. How do you censor Twitter? That's one of the scariest things for all these politicians, for mass governments. They look at this as being like a direct connection from all the citizens of the world. Essentially, we all became a smaller community as a result of Twitter. That if you tweet something, within a second, somebody else on the other side of the world could have read it, right? So how do you censor it in that time? That's a scary thought. Like I can imagine when they saw the actual capacity of Twitter, because to be honest, I wasn't a major supporter of it or an advocate for it. I was like, Twitter is essentially a waste of time. People are just tweeting their everyday events. Then I didn't see that the actual progress that it was making with reference to making a totally different media outlet, right?
Yeah.
Something that is instant, literally instant.
And this kind of ties back in. I remembered my thought now. This ties back into what we were discussing with India. Everybody gets a little more depressed, I think it's safe to say, when we see so much of this stuff going on. We see all the turmoil of the world coming to light, and we become cynical. And that's like a natural response. It's called empathy overload, I believe. Sympathy exhaustion. It's the same principle. But in order for us to deal with these things, they have to come to light. Things aren't going to be peachy just yet. As somebody once said to me, it's the worst is yet to come and the best is yet to come. And I believe it's in that order. So,
and generally speaking, I was really pessimistic with the way that the world was going, before there was this massive boom in communication, which really gave a beacon of light at the end of the tunnel. But you look at the progression of the world and how everybody's kind of moving. There's a mass uprising that has just started. It seems like that 99% that everybody talks about, people are becoming more aware that there is a 99%, that we represent, the majority. It's the people have become more aware of, the fact that you can educate each other through these different media sources, podcasts, different blogs. People are always making even vlogs on YouTube and informing people about, you have even general media, actual media, the things that you would learn about, politics and everything. People don't go to CNN anymore. They don't go to CBC here in Canada anymore. They don't go to BBC. They go to, The Daily Show, right, with Jon Stewart. Yeah. They go to Stephen Colbert, right? They go and they learn these things from individuals that are comedians. Why? Because those are people that are more like, the rest of us, right? Comedians are the craziest people out there, right? They always have a backstory, and that's kind of how a lot of people feel like they're able to empathize with comedians, and that's what it is now. You have people that are regular people and now have the power to educate people about world issues, right? Jon Stewart could talk about anything.
And I think that's what our point is here, talking about these topics to everyone. And, keeping them aware as well as ourselves.
Yeah, because if there's one thing I think we need, is just to increase our level of awareness, to keep that going. It's actually, to borrow a line from Donald Rumsfeld, we have to be aware of what we're aware of, we have to be aware of what we're not aware of, and then we have to try to envision what we're not aware of that we're not aware of. It's a bit
I lost you somewhere in there.
Military obsessive compulsive thought, I guess, but I find it's incredibly important to try to envision those three concepts before I embark on any project, you know, which we applied here.
And like we were talking about Vice, right? That is one of my favorite sites that I like to visit, vice.com. They have reporters that are literally like all of us. They're completely like, you know, straight clothes, like, you know, just wearing jeans and a t-shirt. They'll go in and they'll be like ready to go into Afghanistan, you know, to be at the front lines and be reporting. And they have reported. They've showed that you'll have American troops that are essentially guarding opium fields, right?
Yeah.
And that's one thing to observe, that the opium trade, the heroin trade in the world has gone up, you know, a lot since the States has occupied Afghanistan. And the debt of Afghanistan now has reached, I believe, $16 trillion for the States. Sorry, not Afghanistan, the total debt of the United States. And there's a debt clock. Can you find that? The debt clock? Yeah, there's this debt clock in I think it's in New York, and they just have this massive clock that shows the country's debt and how much each family would have to essentially pay to each family would have to pay just to pay off that debt. So it's over here, it says, you know, not including what's owed to, I believe, other countries, but it's 13 trillion, you know, 165 million, 37. I just lost.
Yeah, 37,683.
165
Oh, yeah, sorry,
billion.
13,
sorry,
yeah,
I just lost. Yeah, so
13 trillion, 165 billion, $37,680,360.
Yeah.
For each individual family, it comes to about $11,537. Sorry,
$11,537. Well, $11,537.
You can tell our mathematics skills didn't get us this far.
No, it's.
But you know, you think that they'd pay that more than that on taxes in a year?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
$11,000.
Have you for anybody that's seen Zeitgeist, for those who haven't, they go into talking about the system of debt. Sorry?
No, Zeitgeist, are you saying?
Zeitgeist, yeah. In the documentary Zeitgeist, they address the monetary system in the U.S., which is basically predicated entirely upon the Federal Reserve System. And you can read all about that, how that's come into place by reading the book The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffiths, I think, or Griffin. I'll have to check into that. But the Federal Reserve, it's funny, it's not federal. It's about as federal as Federal Express, and it has no reserves. It's basically a private company producing all of the America's cash right now, which is now a fiat currency. We know it's not based on anything. There's no gold backing it. To me, it's going to collapse. But
and also, like, in addition to that, you also have the fact that this not only being privatized, they actually, every dollar that is printed, you know, in the States, is printed with that much owed plus interest.
Exactly. So you'll never, like, money is debt.
Yeah.
And you'll never be able to pay it off because there's interest in place.
Yeah.
So
it's a criminal system, really, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing and kind of insane in the fact that this is something that has been around for ages. It's essentially running, like, this country, the United States of America, is in debt to the Federal Reserve, which is a group, a family, a privatized company. Like, that's something that's hard to grasp. Like, it's not, so you can have, like, essentially that they own the states right now, you know?
Now, I just want to bring this quote up because I think it's beautiful. It's by Amschel Rothschild, you know, if for those of you with an interest in, they call them conspiracy theories, but he said, "Give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not for who makes its laws." Now, that's a very interesting thing to bring up because we can see that playing out in the U.S. right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Laws are, I mean, if you look at the Federal Reserve, it actually has its own police force.
Yeah.
There are guards dedicated precisely to that with the same powers as police.
Even Monsanto, they actually hired ex-Blackwater, what's it called, mercenaries.
Yeah, which Blackwater has now changed names to something else. But
so Blackwater was essentially like Jason Bourne kind of, the Treadstone thing,
yeah,
right?
It was actually...
They call it a private security firm, but it basically, you know, absorbs all of the military officials, these guys that come out and, you know, Navy SEALs in some cases. And these guys all go in, you know, to do private business. Basically as mercenaries. That's what it is.
Yeah, and these individuals, like, they also, well, Monsanto hired them apparently for surveillance, right? To find surveillance on activists because they're trying to stop activism against Monsanto. Obviously, that's against, like, you know, better business for them. But it's crazy to see that these movies act out the way that they do, and this exists in the modern day. Like, we actually have training camps that train their individuals like you would see in the Bourne movies. Like drowning them and torturing them, water boarding them, doing whatever to kill their fight and to make them into like just these robots, right? So it's pretty interesting to see that they're not even denying this anymore. The fact that these type of experiments and agencies exist. So
there's so much information now coming out via whistleblowers, and I think Bradley Manning, the guy who actually provided the information to Julian Assange, the head of WikiLeaks,
that's a different story in itself, right?
Yeah,
Julian Assange,
that's a whole other.
Well, he's in Ecuador right now, I believe.
Yeah, well,
so he was extradited.
Yeah, you explained the story better than I could.
Well, I mean, essentially that he was basically being tried for, I believe he's in Switzerland, and they're trying to get him for surprise sex, which is basically there are certain laws in the country, very strict laws with what happens while an individual, like with reference to consent, with reference to like when you give consent, and with withdrawing consent even. So like because of some of these like strange corners, and be it Julian Assange was essentially brought under for surprise sex in that country, and sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to bring up that apparently Julian Assange is still in the Ecuadorian embassy in
so he's
the
not
UK.
He's not been extradited yet.
He's not been extradited yet.
That's the thing, is that Ecuador is trying to get him safe passage to the airport.
Yep.
And it's like literally a Bourne movie that this guy had to find out he found out that he was getting targeted by, I guess, Interpol or whatever the policing force was that's coming after him in England, because he was in England at the time when this happened, he found out, so he was calling up a bunch of embassies and finding out who was loyal to his cause, and Ecuador said that we believe in what you're doing with WikiLeaks, so get to our embassy. So he went there as like a police chase, essentially, like you would see in a Bourne movie, and he jumped in this embassy, and he was took essentially asylum in this, and he it's amazing that this kind of stuff happens, and he was doing mass conferences like from balconies, like that's what that picture is right there.
Yeah.
That they had to have a constant lookout for snipers and stuff. Like, this is the kind of conditions that people have to like, and this is a guy who's literally just trying to make the truth known.
Yeah,
right.
And that's precisely it.
So,
by the way, he doesn't purport. He doesn't call himself a hacker or a journalist. He's simply providing the outlet through which information can come by whistleblowers, so I think that's providing an
and that's because
service.
like transparency in government, he just wants just like, or even somewhat of a level of transparency, and like individuals that talked about the fact that there's always like a secret conduct in the government. Like, they've been obviously JFK had a very famous speech against where he talks about secret societies. Yeah. And one of those,
secrecy.
One of those milestone speeches too, right? Milestone speeches.
Mm-hmm.
And he was assassinated, whatever, after. But not to delve into that conspiracy. But that was interesting. The fact that anybody that really kind of tries to bring light to these things is targeted in some way or another. You had Tupac when he started the Illuminati movement. You suddenly had allegations that he had raped women, right? You had Michael Jackson. He made a song called "They Don't Really Care About Us." Yeah. And
the same goes for William Cooper.
Yeah.
For those of you who know him, you can look him up.
It seems like you can defame people's characters pretty easily.
Yeah.
Right? That's like, the media is always eager to get like a little chomp at something. So if you give them something to work with. Yeah, I think it's really important to look at that to really delve into this. I'd like to talk about that more in future, just to examine some of our misconceptions, one of which being that we're going to get all the information that we need from the mainstream media, and that's simply not the case, and I forget his name. He's known as the grandfather of rap, and he had a song titled "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." The revolution will not be televised. Yeah. Yeah, you remember that song, and
it's so on point with what we're discussing now, because I believe we're going to continue to hear the same talking heads continue as if everything's all right, even after things have jumped off. And we need to really examine in ourselves what we're getting from the mainstream. More importantly, what's being left out, and what can we do about it. I think this is a great step.
We do, like, and generally speaking, in this country, we are really fortunate in this country.
Yeah.
That when things happen, like in Canada, when you hear about shooting, it's much less frequent than you would hear about in the States, especially since, the gun law, things have been starting to change. But, I when I was in India for schooling, there's this one story that kind of, like, brings attention to some of the crazy characters that you'll run into. We had an individual that was from a college in India, a nearby college, and it was MIT. It was called MIT. I thought it was Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I was like, holy smokes, we have a prof coming from MIT. Turned out to be Moneyball Institute of Technology, right? And so I found out about this professor, and he came in from this college, and he told us a story about one of the students there. There was a student who would wake up every day, and he would have, like, pains in his back, like constant back pains, and he'd have strange symptoms, like, throughout the day, and sometimes migraines. Couldn't figure it out. Turned out that his roommate had been chloroforming him and raping him, like, every single night, right? So this is like the kind of horror stories that you hear. And we don't have to ever deal with stories like that here in Canada. Like, obviously, there's Robert Picton was, like, a major, a major story that was covered. If you guys
And that actually came under,
Picton.
that actually, the official story actually came under a little fire as well.
Mm-hmm.
That he wasn't actually mentally capable of pulling what he set off. But that's another story entirely.
Yeah, exactly. But it was definitely, like, just that gave me a little bit of perspective. That like I had said earlier, that American and Canadian students, we go there and we get that kind of feeling that we're just back in our hometown.
Yeah,
but
it's
but
important.
It is different all over, right? So.
Yeah. I appreciate that point. At the same time, I think it's important to recognize that, even Canada here, we're not gonna. I mean, we can't get too comfortable with the idea that it's completely safe here.
Yeah,
because
and with the laws changing, especially, right?
Yeah, we didn't hear much about that, but Vic Taves, the Minister of Public Safety, ran through the Omnibus Crime Bill, or at least tried to. His argument for trying to get the internet locked down in Canada was, you're either with us or you're with the pedophiles, and it's
Canadian politics in general have really, like, taken a strange path with Rob Ford.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Right. That was.
And I think it's like
the Toronto. For anybody who doesn't know, like the Toronto mayor. Sorry,
I don't think anybody doesn't know.
No, you're gonna.
Yeah, so it's the Toronto mayor that actually got found and accused, actually not found. He got accused of smoking crack on a video, and this apparently the Toronto Star, and I believe it is the Gawker, some type of media outlet. They apparently had screened this video to Gawker and the Toronto Star.
And I think it's important to note that not only did these journalists think it was important enough to pay the providers of this video, which was a substantial sum. They thought it was important enough to pay him, and to argue the case for the editor to put it in. And you have people now vouching for the authenticity of this video. What's more, though, and I'm not defaming his character, but I am curious, just as an individual, as to why he hasn't opted to do a drug test. He can do what he wants, but, I think that would solve a problem. If he says, that's outlandish, that's not true, why wouldn't he submit to one?
It's a valid point, but once you get up to that type of power, you can get away with anything. A little bit of money or signing papers, wave it away. Yeah.
And sorry, there's just one more point I wanted to make in discussing the differences between Canada. We think we're so informed here. We actually have a higher consolidation of media companies than the U.S. does. We only have 5 here in Canada. Rogers, Bell, TELUS. Then we have a company in Quebec and I believe one other. But the U.S. is higher, something like 7 to 9. And for anybody who wants to find that information, I actually uncovered it in Mel Hertig. Mel, easy enough to spell, Hurtig, Hurtig. In his book, I think it's The Real Truth About Canada, he discusses, the fact is we have a higher consolidation of media power, and he goes into a lot of detail about what really isn't talked about. I would recommend that book. They call him the Canadian Noam Chomsky.
Oh, yeah, Noam Chomsky. He's
He's actually the figure that really inspired me to get into this. It wasn't until I uncovered his books and really got on his perspective that I started to look at things as critically as I do.
That's funny how there's totally different spectrum. That like you got into him and were inspired by him. My first exposure to him was through the Ali G show, right? Like that's pretty funny. Yeah. But
the Ali G show. I was watching that the other day. That's pretty good.
He's actually crazy though.
Yeah, I know. He had these. He had a Jewish person. A Christian, a Catholic. He had all these people from different religions.
Oh, the religion debate one.
Yeah, the religion debate, and he just asks all these absurd questions that they all are starting to get mad at him.
But you know what it shows? It highlights the weirdness in the religions.
Yeah,
and he does it very
exactly. That's what he does. Is he asks the questions that no one else does.
Yeah. Well, doesn't he have a master's?
I think he's a master's from either Cambridge or something. Sasha. I'll look it up here. Sasha Baron Cohen. He's definitely educated, and like a lot of people that have spoken would say that he's a really good. What is that type of acting where you're in character all the time?
Oh, method
acting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he apparently is a really major advocate for method acting, and like they're saying that during like the Borat shooting, like the whole time he was in set. He was completely in character, right? He didn't break character the whole time, so that's kind of cool.
I wonder how he was for what's the other one? Bruno.
Oh God, I for one did not see that movie. Yeah. I waited till the reviews were in, and power to that guy. I'm amazed by what he can do, but I'm just not down for that humor. It's just not my thing.
Yeah, it wasn't the best.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it says right here he went to University of Cambridge and that he studied history. I think he has a master's in history, and that's.
Yeah, if Sacha Baron Cohen would like to clarify that, please don't hesitate to.
That'd be awesome, man, if you could come on.
Yeah.
I remember like back in the day when I first got into the Ali G show, it was kind of like really. Not well known and stuff, and people used to look at me really weird because I'd be like, "Yes, very nice." And then when Borat came out, it became totally just pumped up and everything.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was pretty cool to find out that an individual like that is actually really well educated, and he does show that through his like humor and through his questions, he kind of shows a lot of the absurdities like in the States, like that one scene where he's in this one bar and he starts singing "Throw the Jew Down the Well." Yeah. Right. And my country will be free, right?
Through the Jew down the well.
And all these people like they like jump, throwing their hats off, and they're like singing along and stuff, and kind of showed that like in the southern states you still have
all these
the religious belt.
What's that?
The religious belt, right?
Yeah. All these directors nowadays they always do that. They make America look stupid. There's Family Guy, South Park especially. Yeah. South Park's a big one,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
South Park's creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone, I think it is, right? Yeah, they constantly are trying to get like cut off. They don't want to do the show anymore, right? Mm-hmm.
And they're like Seth MacFarlane of Family Guy said the same thing. He can't believe he's still going.
But like these guys actually try to sabotage themselves. Like they did an episode on Muhammad, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And like peace be upon him, like they did an episode on him, and the fact that wasn't like targeted, I was surprised, right? Because like South Park is a really big, they have a lot of impact. A lot of people watch it. So
huge cult following.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they cover every issue, like every single issue that you can imagine. Like they cover Scientology and stuff.
Yeah.
And
that was the best one. That was the one where actually Chef quit on South Park.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. No, they Chef didn't come back.
His name's what's his name? Isaac Hayes.
Isaac Hayes. Yeah. Yeah, well, I think the story was. The story was he got upset that it was being broadcast.
Yeah.
And quit.
Yeah.
But I guess the next season or next episode they'd
they killed him off.
Yeah, they killed him
pretty
off.
brutally,
Yeah.
I might add.
Yeah,
but
real bad.
Well, they killed off Kenny like every episode brutally. Okay, so just
Well, this is real brutal. Like
Yeah,
I think they went
definitely.
as far as like child. What was it?
They're
Nambla.
all- Yeah, Nambla. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not into
Nambla,
that.
which is
It's
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they definitely went into that for a reason. But I would like to point out just what I've noticed. You know, I used to be a really hardcore South Park fan. I really think it hit a lot of great notes, but it wasn't until recent seasons where I think they started to dip a little. I mean, I remember the one episode they did on WikiLeaks. You know, they called it WikiLinks, and it was the brother of the, I don't know, that Lemmingwinks. You know.
Oh, Lemmywinks. Yeah.
Lemmywinks, that's right. His brother's WikiLinks, and they really kind of painted it in a bad light, as if transparency is a bad thing. And I kind of got to thinking, because I saw later episodes too. They completely kind of went besides the point on a lot of issues, and they were still following the South Park formula, but the issues that they were addressing were, they would paint the people that they would normally, you know, try to put in a critical light as the saviors, as the ones
Yeah.
we ought to look up to. And so I wonder how that came about.
Well, getting back to the, sorry, brain fart there for a second.
Yeah, there's gonna be a few of those. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, getting back to South Park on the Scientology one, you know, that episode was actually pretty unique because they never made fun of Scientology the entire.
But they made fun of like Mormonism and stuff too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but is it Matt Stone or Trey Parker? Which one of them is actually a Mormon?
Really?
Yeah, no kidding. One of them actually is. But
They bashed it like
No, they
crazy.
bashed
Like they
the
showed
hell
the
out of it.
theology
Yeah,
of it completely.
yeah, but you know what? There was that scene in the end where the
Though
little
they
boy,
go to
who's
heaven?
part of it, says, well, the little boy at the end of that episode says, you know what, Stan, I just wanted to be your friend, you know, and I'm like, whatever my beliefs are, my family's happy, you know, and that's something I think I can respect, but like certainly there are some issues with Mormonism that I have that I just like, it's too long.
Yeah,
to
no,
bring
like
up, but,
generally speaking, when it comes down to it, like I respect every religion. I respect any like culture as long as it doesn't propagate hate in any way.
Yeah.
Anything that has any form of hate that is kind of like told to them to, you know, as a result of their rituals or their practices, right? And you know, people as a result around the world are kind of getting to the point where it's like spirituality without religion now. You know, especially the people that are a little bit more open to other you know, other cultures and stuff. That's the observed thing now. Whereas before it was essentially religion without spirituality, right?
Yeah.
You know, people kind of just looking the part and not actually having that mindset that we actually need to have.
Well, I was me and my girlfriend got on the discussion of religion because her being Catholic, but we don't follow it. We have 2 children out of wedlock. We started getting into the discussion about it and how, you know, we're led to believe that with religion that there's all this stuff that you have to do to make, you know, someone happy.
Make the big guy happy.
Yeah, to make the big guy happy, to get it to heaven.
Yeah.
And we started getting into a deep conversation about, you know, all these people never practice what they preach.
Yeah.
You know, they'll go into a religion just to get the forgiveness.
Nope.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
They take advantage of it.
Yeah.
That's not. I'm not for religion, but I'm not against it. I think religion does you know, good job on people's self-esteem. You know, gives them that confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do agree with that. You know, I respect religions as long as they don't, you know, try to force themselves upon other people or propagate hate. But, you know, what you were talking about, what is it they say about Catholicism? I asked God for a bike and he didn't give it to me, so I stole the bike and asked for forgiveness later.
But
Is that
Al Pacino?
Could have been, don't know. But, you know, when I think about these kind of things, it's right to ask yourself, if I genuinely believe that this information is imperative to people living happily, you know, is it right to spread it to other people? In other words, is it right to give somebody something that they need that they're unaware of? And I think the answer to that is yes, so long as you do the research. You know, so long as you really, you know, make the effort to find out at the expense of your own personal bias. You know, you have to be willing to say, I don't have the answers, you know, and in that way, I think that you have to divorce yourself of something that's
The thing is, like, with any religion, right? Like, the older the religion, right, the more it is susceptible to having some type of change. Yeah. Right? And that's why you find that a lot of the younger religions, like, they'll have less factions, they'll have less sects, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of a pun in itself. But, it's something that you'll notice that, the older the religions, you'll have more churches, more divides, and more different interpretations of, the same message that is supposed to be like a unifying message. Mm-hmm. But we are kind of pushing the envelope here for the time right now. So I think this is a good place for us to go out. This is honestly, it was an awesome experience doing this. And we are recording right now out of beautiful Aldergrove, British Columbia, and hopefully in the future, we are looking forward to having some really inspiring people on here. Coming up soon, actually, we do have Gary Mangett. He's going to be coming on the podcast. He recently, just yesterday, last night, he came out of a first-round knockout win in Penticton, British Columbia. Yeah.
But for those of us who don't know Gary Mangett, what's his backstory?
So he actually, we met at a camp that we both volunteered at. I think at the time we may have been just there as campers. It was like a Sikh youth camp. And he is, an individual who's really inspired by one of our martial arts teachers at this camp. And through that inspiration, he kind of took it forward and, really made a difference. He's now training out of TriStar, which is, I think he just came out of a training camp in TriStar right now, which is in Montreal, the same gym as George St. Pierre, GSP, for those of you that watch MMA. And, he really is somebody that has an awesome story. So I would love to sit down with him and talk. Mm-hmm. And he said that he would like to come in. So, within the next week or so, we'll be having a podcast with him. And, we do have some other people coming in the near future. And, hopefully, as everything goes forward, if we get... it's not really about finding people that are known to the public. It's about finding people that are going to have interesting perspectives and insight. So, that's the best thing for this podcast. And,
there's one other point I'd like to bring up. I know we call this the Good News Podcast, and we've covered a lot of really heavy subjects. The rape in India. We're covering some of the real downside of what the military-industrial complex is doing. But you know what? We're not always going to like what we hear, even when it's good information. And... it's important to keep in mind that in order to improve, things are going to get a little hectic. So, when we were kids, we didn't like eating broccoli, but it was good for us. That's one way of putting it, I guess.
Exactly.
But
Well, brings us to another note. Keep positive. Stay healthy.
Yep.
Eat your greens.
Yep.
Drink lots and lots and lots of water.
Yep, all that Lululemon shit.
Grow a garden instead of a lawn.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we support gardens, not lawns, all right?
Yeah, there you go. That'll be our tagline.
Lawns look nice, but they're not
productive.
Yeah, that's a good spot. Again, it was really awesome for you guys to come out. Thank you so much to Ricky Cookson and Graeme Beamiss. We'll have more podcasts with the three of us sitting around and maybe some other people. And this has been a pleasure. And... this is just the starting of a big thing. So
Thanks a lot for watching, guys.
I'm sorry. But I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world. Millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men, with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all